There are rumors that have come up to the Hill of a secretive project within the Department of Defense.
I've been in a Twitter war.
All of the 7 mountains of society to be taken over.
Those people in the teachers' unions are Marxist, cultural Marxists, often gay.
We're trying to recruit you to tuck your penis.
If you believe in evolution, why don't you just kill people?
I'm like, well then let's go fight. I'll just kick his ass. How's that?
Welcome back to the Fever Swamp Review, a podcast from the Colorado Times-Recorder. I'm your host, Heidi Beadle. And I know this is kind of corny, and maybe you could imply this from the title of the episode, but I just want to give a very woke trigger warning to let people know that in this episode, we're going to be talking about sexual harassment and sexual abuse and topics of a sexual nature. So, if that makes you uncomfortable, please like and leave a comment and then click away. So here in the Fever Swamp, right, one of the interesting phenomenon is the way in which our own little ecosystem mirrors sort of the larger national ecosystem. And unless you've been living under a rock somewhere, you've probably heard about this whole Epstein situation, right? And it's totally kind of broiled conservatives, and it's an interesting phenomenon, right? Because for a long time, Epstein, the sex trafficker, sex criminal, and Ghislaine Maxwell and all of their activities were kind of this realm of speculation, and it was very involved in kind of QAnon and various conspiracy circles, and that they were doing child and human like sex trafficking and ensnaring all these elites. And recently, Trump and the DOJ has said there's no list. There wasn't a list. We can't do anything. Trump has made a series of kind of bizarre sort of conversation, like statements about Epstein and his relationship to Epstein and how he stole employees from him. And it's a whole thing, right? And I don't use the term kind of conspiracy to necessarily poo-poo people, because I think it's very obvious that Epstein was involved in a very large-scale sexual blackmail operation, most likely in conjunction with, if not domestic, then certainly foreign intelligence agencies, right? And people think this, they're like, whoa, no, that's crazy. And folks, the CIA can do whatever it wants as long as it's in the name of national security. The CIA murdered at least one dude that we know of, right? The guy that got thrown out of a window after taking LSD, right? They murdered at least one civilian, on domestic soil. They've actually, the early some of the MK Ultra tests actually involved brothels and, these clandestinely recorded sexual operations. Yes, folks, I'm sorry, but the government is doing some awful things. It has done some awful things. And if you're into fun online gambling, you can probably make a good bet that they're going to continue to do awful things. And it's not just Trump, right? There's been this whole situation with Sean Diddy Combs and his trial, and there have been allegations swirling about him in Hollywood forever, and they're right. But Trump apparently is considering pardoning Diddy, or Diddy has asked Trump to pardon him. But there's a lot of talk of sexual kind of abuse and trafficking and really terrible behavior from elected officials at kind of the tip-top level. And look, this is not necessarily just a bash on Republicans, because we know who else is on any potential Epstein list, right? Who has flown on the Lolita Express. which, I guess these guys were all just big Nabokov fans, right? Or they love the police. But our beloved Slick Willie, who not only is involved, whose names come up in the Epstein thing, but he was also in office. He obviously had a sex scandal with an intern, right? And regardless of the consensuality of the acts, there's the age gap, there's the power differential, like the president of the United States. It's bad. It's gross, right? And again, we want to talk about the government doing things. Maybe look up what Slick Willie was doing at the Mina airport during Iran-Contra. And again, I keep kind of coming back to this thing, but I mean, anyone who has done any kind of research into the Finders cult knows exactly what our government is capable of and what they're capable of kind of covering up, and eventually people forget it. And if anyone brings it up, 5-10 years down the road, they're kind of coated with the Alex Jones conspiracy stigma. But what are you going to do? So these are all the things that are going on in national politics right now, the conversations that we're having. But here in Colorado, we have our own slew of sort of difficult sex abuse conversations. And it really kind of got started last month with a series of allegations against Representative Ron Weinberg, everyone's favorite South African legislator. No shade to the South Africans, right? My favorite footwear company is Jim Green. They're South African. But Ron Weinberg got himself into some trouble for some statements that he allegedly made and he denied. But the people making these accusations include Heather Booth, who was a former member of the Elizabeth School Board, and some other folks, right? And so these accusations came out in early July through this Twitter account, X account, associated with Sarah Fields, who's kind of a conservative media person. And they were quickly kind of picked up by folks like Representative Brandy Bradley, everyone's favorite representative. And, it's important that these kind of things are getting out there and people are talking about it. But it's also important to know that the context of this situation is the Republican minority whip elections, right? They're choosing new leadership, and Bradley was running for the spot, and Weinberg was running for the spot, and here comes all this information about Weinberg. And I feel like a lot of what I do in this podcast is maybe disillusion people about the way politics in practice actually works, right? And I don't mean to be cynical, but I think there are just realities that a lot of people don't realize. One of which is, if you ever want to run for public office, if you run for anything above city council, and even city council, depending on where you're running, this is going to happen to you, right? But as soon as you run for any kind of serious public office, somebody out there, maybe the opposing party, maybe your own party, maybe another candidate, maybe journalists, it doesn't matter, but they're going to look into you, and they're going to, depending on who they are, right? Whether it's, just a journalist doing a story, or, a consulting firm who's been hired by, the opposition to do opposition research, they're going to look pretty hard. They're going to pull your court records. They're going to pull your arrest records. They're going to talk to all kinds of people who knew you. They're going to look at your college yearbook. They're going to do anything and everything they can to get as much information about you as possible. They're going to know from the outset the good, the bad, and the ugly. Right? And oftentimes, if it's your own party, they will know these things, and they will just kind of, sort of let it play out and hope it doesn't get brought up. But, it could be a liability later, or it could be an asset, depending on how you look at these things, right? So Just keep that in mind, right, as we're kind of exploring some of these things. So this is a story from July 8th by the Colorado Sun, by Jesse Paul. Warning, this story contains detailed descriptions of sexual harassment allegations. 2 women say State Rep Ron Weinberg made unwanted sexual advances toward them at a pair of conservative leadership events while he was head of the Larimer County GOP, but before he was elected to the State House. The women came forward after Weinberg, a Loveland Republican, announced he was running to be the House Minority Whip, the number 3 GOP position in the chamber. Weinberg ended his bid after the allegations were emailed last week by one of his accusers to each of the 22 Republicans in the House, but he vehemently denies the accusations. Let me be clear. I'm not going to do a South African accent, sorry. Let me be clear. These claims are completely false and do not reflect who I am or how I have conducted myself in life or in public service, Weinberg said in a written statement. They have caused great pain to me, my family, and those who truly know my heart and my character. It is hard to view this as anything but a politically motivated attempt to damage my name and prevent me from leading, but I will not be intimidated by falsehoods. I have retained legal counsel and will pursue every available legal avenue to defend my name, protect my family, and hold accountable those who seek to weaponize false accusations. Boy, if I had a nickel for every time I've received one of those statements. Jacqueline Anderson said she was with her husband at the leadership program of the Rockies Conference at the Broadmoor Hotel in Colorado Springs when Weinberg came up to the couple and proclaimed that he was going to have sex with her. I'm not a prude in any way or offended easily, but I was like, did I hear that correctly? Said Anderson, who at the time was vice chair of the Mesa County GOP. I was kind of like, no, I don't think so. It was a very awkward moment. Definitely Ron had had some drinks. Anderson and her husband, Corey, said they remember the date clearly, June 4th, 2021, because it was their wedding anniversary. The next day, Corey Anderson said he confronted Weinberg about his unwanted sexual advance. He apologized all over himself, Corey Anderson said. The Anderson said Weinberg told them he didn't remember making the remark, which they said was something to the effect of, I'm going to F your wife, and blamed it on drinking too much alcohol. They tried to move on from the situation until the next year, at the same conference, when the Anderson said Weinberg made the remark again. It was at that same event in February 2022 that Heather Booth, who at the time was a member of the Elizabeth School Board, says Weinberg made unwanted sexual advances toward her. Booth said she was joking with a friend about needing a facelift when Weinberg, who she barely knew, came out of nowhere and said she didn't need the surgery. Then, according to Booth, Weinberg doubled down, describing sex acts he would perform with her. In her statement to House Republicans, Booth wrote, "My friend and I were stunned. We didn't even know how to react." Booth declined to speak to the Sun about the experience, but confirmed that she sent the accusation to the House Republican caucus and said it was okay for her name to be published. The Andersons told the Sun that they reported Weinberg to the people running the leadership program of the Rockies after the second unwanted sexual advance. Those people didn't respond to multiple messages seeking comment. They don't talk to us either. Weinberg, when asked Monday about the accusations, first referred questions to his lawyer. "My client absolutely denies all the allegations brought against him," said Reed Elkis, Weinberg's attorney. "In light of those allegations, our firm is looking at all legal options." Later, in a written statement, Weinberg questioned why the accusations were being made so long after he took office. "If those concerns were genuine, why were they not raised when I was elected to represent House District 51, he said. "Why did they suddenly surface now, at the very moment I announced my candidacy for Republican leadership in the House?" Jacqueline Anderson said her decision to come forward had nothing to do with politics and that she doesn't care who is the House Republican whip. She said she didn't know about Booth's allegations, nor did she know Booth until they connected in recent days and decided to make their accusations public. "Ron's behavior disqualifies him from a role in leadership," Jacqueline Anderson said. "He clearly feels it's okay to say whatever he wants to women." On social media, House Minority Leader Rose Puglisi, the top Republican in the House, said, "We take these allegations seriously. We are cooperating with the proper authorities to ensure all accusations are properly handled and have forwarded the information for review, Puglisi said. Puglisi indicated the allegations were referred to the legislature's Office of Legislative Workplace Relations. The office, however, only has purview over situations involving state lawmakers. The alleged incidents involving Weinberg happened before he was a state representative. Weinberg skipped the House GOP caucus meeting Monday, where Republican representatives elected a new whip, State Rep. Carlos Barron of Fort Lipton. And those weren't the only allegations against Weinberg. 3 days later, Sarah Fields posted a statement from a third accuser to her social media. To the Republican House Minority Caucus, in addition to the previous letter sent, it was important to include my impact statement. Victim impact statement, story number 3. At the end of a retreat in 2022, I was celebrating a special win at the bar with a room packed full of people. After the bar closed, many of us were lingering in the lobby, saying our goodbyes. Suddenly, Ron, whom I had never met prior to that moment, approached me and asked if I wanted to help him steal a flag with another member to have more fun that night. I found it random and passed it off as a joke, saying, "Yeah, sure," and continued saying goodbye to other people. A few moments later, Ron approached me and asked if I wanted to go with him. I was confused and asked him what he was talking about. He replied that he was serious about stealing the flag and that he wanted to hang out with me more. He then looked at me with a deep, lingering stare, saying, "You're so effing interesting." I had then gone from confused to scared. After I learned he was serious about spending more time with me, including engaging in illegal activity, this isn't funny, I'm sorry, I explained to him that I thought he was joking earlier and that I was not interested in spending any kind of time with him. He replied, "But don't you want to just do something more with me to make this night amazing?" I told him that everyone, including myself, was leaving to go to bed and reiterated again that I was not interested in going anywhere with him. Angrily, he hurled, "F you." I ignored him, turning to walk away. As I walked, I could hear him following me and pleading with me not to leave. At that point, Ron's behavior gained the attention of a bystander who witnessed the incident and asked me if I needed help. Realizing my safety was in danger, I accepted the man's offer to walk with me to safety and to the building where my room was located, ensuring that I arrived there safely. I never looked back, but the man who helped me told me that Ron had been following us for quite some time. I truly believe that if someone hadn't intervened in that moment to be my bodyguard, Ron would have followed me to my room and tried to enter against my will. I don't want to think about the level of danger I would have found myself in then. It is essential to recognize that liberty is not a principle to be invoked selectively or when it is convenient. At the heart of liberty is respect for the consent of all others at all times. But to Ron, my consent was irrelevant. Repugnantly ignoring another person's right to their own choices is the antithesis of what our founding fathers fought for. Such a man disregards the very principles of liberty which he claims to uphold and does not qualify for any position of leadership within the American government. I am deeply disturbed by the mind of anyone who would make the conscious choice to allow Ron the delicate position of handling our constitutional republic, knowing he engages in ongoing threats to our constitutionally protected rights in everyday life. If this is you reading this, I ask that you please consider the fact that you have made a wrong decision. For yourself, for your families, for liberty. I respectfully request that Representative Ron Weinberg be removed from the House Republican caucus. Out of concern for potential retaliation, I wish to remain anonymous to the broader body unless it becomes necessary to speak directly with investigators. The gentleman who assisted me is also willing to come forward if needed. So 3 allegations, 2 of which on the record. The third, she left her initials. I'm not going to say them because I'm pretty sure I can figure out who it is, given the leadership program of the Rockies and the people who go in these circles. And, you know, this is kind of one of the reasons why Colorado Times Recorder has been so intent on kind of following leadership program of the Rockies and trying to kind of report on what goes on there. Now, we've been kind of hampered by the fact that leadership program of the Rockies, to get like the full weekend lunches, dinners, the fun afternoon parties where elected officials get drunk and sexually harass other members of the Republican Party, you have to pay like $2,000 to $3,000. It's a pretty pricey exclusive event. And if you're interested in funding CTR's coverage of Leadership Program of the Rockies, please go to coloradotimesrecorder.com and make a tax-deductible donation to our nonprofit newsroom. Anyway, so you've got 3 allegations against Weinberg here, and that's not even the end of it. So this is from a July 29th article in the Denver Post by Seth Klamman. In November 2022, a month after Colorado State Rep Hugh McKean died of a heart attack, McKean's longtime partner called his replacement for the coming term, Ron Weinberg. Amy Parks asked Weinberg about allegations she had heard about him sexually harassing women at a prominent conservative leadership event earlier that year, Parks told the Denver Post. So people knew about Weinberg's allegations before he even ran for anything. Weinberg denied the allegations, Parks said, and the two talked about the Loveland-based House seat that Weinberg had been appointed to fulfill as the successor to McKean, the late House Minority Leader. Weinberg had beat 3 candidates for the Vacancy Committee's appointment earlier that month. Parks had nominated one of the other contenders, Christy Hall, and she said that she told Weinberg in the call that he needed to improve his behavior or he risked losing his next election. According to Parks, Weinberg replied that if Hall challenged him again, he would kick her in the pussy. Taken aback, Parks told him that sounded Trumpy. Trump uses his hands, Weinberg replied, according to Parks. I use my feet. Parks said she took the comment not as a physical threat, but as a crass warning that he would easily defeat Hall. It was part of a pattern of inappropriate comments and behavior that Weinberg exhibited during his time as chair of the Larimer County Republican Party, according to nearly a dozen people who experienced or witnessed interactions with Weinberg. So now we've got 4 accounts of this sexual harassment, and recently, once again, Brandy Bradley kind of involved here, but there's this story now that Weinberg has been making copies of keys to offices in the legislature, and there's also more inappropriate statements from Weinberg. I think kind of at this point, you guys get the idea, right? And it's easy, right? As Bradley is doing and some of these other kind of conservative figures who've spoken out about this, it's easy to kind of paint this as like an isolated incident, and Ron Weinberg is he's just a bad apple. But maybe it's kind of a systemic thing, right? Just today, Colorado Public Radio's Benta Berklin released a new report on sexual harassment against Democratic Representative Yara Zokaie. And according to Berklin's reporting, Democratic Rep Yara Zokaie, a first-term lawmaker from Fort Collins, stood next to the podium waiting to speak before a final vote on one of her bills. The chamber was relatively quiet with members in their seats, as is the protocol when the House is taking recorded votes. It was at that moment that the number 3 House Republican, Minority Whip Ryan Armagost, the guy that Weinberg was trying to replace, lifted his cell phone to subtly take a picture of Zokaie from his seat in the front row of the chamber. House floor security footage revealed by CPR News captured a quick flash of light from the phone before he angled it back down. Armagost immediately shared the photo of Zokaie, who was wearing a black blazer over a short dress and knee-high leather boots. In a group chat with the rest of the Republican House caucus on Signal, with a comment he has since deleted. CPR News has obtained screenshots that show several lawmakers quickly responded with comments on Zokaie's outfit, comparing her to a prostitute and a stripper. Armagost wasn't just a member of the GOP leadership when he took and shared the picture. He was also chair of the House Workplace Harassment Committee. Again, it's not funny, but he's the chair of the House Workplace Harassment Committee. The group tasked with investigating and recommending punishments when lawmakers and others in the Capitol are accused of inappropriate behavior. He continued to hold the position until Minority Leader Rose Puglisi removed him from the committee last week after he announced he's moving to Arizona. And so you've got the former minority whip kind of taking these photos and, in the group chat, making kind of sexually suggestive, other members of the group chat were making kind of suggestive comments. And again, the idea that it's just, maybe a few bad apples is not quite accurate, right? Birkeland goes on to report, as Zokaie was speaking on the House floor about the dangers of price gouging on that Friday afternoon, a group of her Republican colleagues was having an entirely different conversation about her choice of outfit via the text message group chat. I thought it was come in jeans day and not in just your underwear day. That's horrible and we need a professional dress code. And no, I don't mean the oldest profession style, said Rep. Rebecca Kelty here in Colorado Springs in response to Armagost's picture. Rep. Brandy Bradley responded with 3 nauseated face emojis and a face palm. That's awful. I didn't know it was dressed like a stripper day. Not funny. Bradley typed in the group chat. Screenshots show Armagost responded to Bradley, but he has since deleted his message. Well, we are on Colfax, Rep. Lori Garcia Sander wrote. Goes by the name of Barbie Q, Rep. Chris Richardson wrote. Those boots weren't made for walking, Garcia Sander wrote. Armagost, more leg shots, Garcia Sander wrote. Many of these elected officials have apologized. Their apologies are included in the CPR statement. Republican Representative Matt Soper came out, opposed to these things and issued kind of a strong condemnation of this kind of personal attacks and rhetoric. But is it possible that maybe there's a little bit of kind of a culture of what you could call misogyny within the Republican Party? I'll leave that for others to decide. And if, maybe you're thinking that it is just misogyny and sexism, well, I gotta tell you, it's not just women that Republicans, the party of faith, family, and freedom, insist on sexually harassing. Last year, during the Republican Assembly, again, context here is important, right? Laurel Imer was running to be the Republican National Committee woman. Imer has had kind of numerous positions within the Republican Party, and she's kind of become a fixture in conservative politics. She famously defended Michelle Malkin, who we talked about in a previous episode, from Silly String during a Denver police riot. And Imer has been, very involved in politics. And she's running for RNC committee woman, a position that is now held by Christy Ruckus Fedora out of Pueblo. Imer's son, Weston, also following in his mother's footsteps, very involved in conservative politics, was, part of Young Republican Caucus and various things. And Weston happens to not be heterosexual. He came out, and it was, I don't mean to say anything disparaging, right? Because, I've met Weston, I've spoken with him. He's a very nice young man. I think Laurel's nice, right? We've always had a pleasant interaction. They're nice people. They certainly don't deserve the kind of rhetoric and vitriol and awful things that have happened to them. And it's difficult for, progressive outlets or people who kind of follow politics because it really is sort of a leopards eating faces moment, right? Like people have been saying, conservatives have these issues with sexism and homophobia and all of these things, and they push back vehemently against that, and faith, family, right? American values. They're very principled, right? I don't know. But the pushback against Weston, in this response to him kind of coming out, is sort of ridiculous, okay? The first time I encountered the Imers was actually during the trucker convoy, and I think it was 2022. And they were there, because Laurel, I think, was maybe running for CD8 or something. But they were there, and they were both wearing matching Trump shirts, and it was the sweetest thing. I try to get my teenage son to wear matching outfits with me, and he refuses. But it's just, how could you guys not know, right? Anyway, so Weston, he came out, and it obviously it drew pushback and controversy. And during this assembly, Dave Williams was leading the assembly. Dave Williams, who had said that we should burn pride flags and has gone on kind of campaigns against LGBT people since he was a lawmaker. So they were at that assembly. And in advance of this assembly, photos of kind of a private nature of Weston were released. They were emailed to all kinds of members within the Republican Party in an effort to defame him, to get him kind of fired from his positions. And not only that, but in advance of the RNC committee woman vote at the assembly, someone had made kind of fake endorsement flyers for Laurel Imer, and it featured Laurel, and then the inappropriate photo of Weston kind of photoshopped over it with Weston in, his birthday suit, endorsing his own mother. And it was awful. It was awful. And here is Weston kind of talking about this whole experience on the Ryan Schuling show a few months ago.
President Trump yesterday signing the Take It Down Act nearly unanimously, passing through both branches of Congress, the House and the Senate. You don't see that very often, but it goes to the seriousness of this issue and the fact that it was bipartisan. It elicited a press release response from our next guest, Weston Imer, and it's entitled Former RNC Youth Council member and co-chair of Team Imer PAC, Weston Imer, victim of revenge porn, releases statement on signing of Take It Down Act in support of it. He joins us now to provide more details here on Ryan Schuling Live. Well, Weston, welcome back.
Thanks for having me, Ryan. It's good to be back with you.
Now, I want to get caught up with you because we go back now. It's almost been 2 full months, but so much has happened. March 25th, in your press release, you cite as when this incident took place. Take us through the nuts and bolts, the details of it, and what exactly went down.
Yeah, of course. So we were in the heat of the Colorado GOP chairman's race here in Colorado at that time, and I had been working with a candidate for that office, Lori Sane, and just on March 25th, right before the reorganizational meeting of the Colorado GOP, an email, actually 2 emails were sent out from a spoofed Proton Mail email address using my name to send out explicit photos of me that were years old to the entirety, or mostly the entirety, of the Colorado Republican Party Central Committee list, which is the governing body of the Colorado Republican Party, right? And it contained 2 illicit photos as well as other imagery, and it was signed that I want to be your future president, and here's how you can get to know me, and it sent the photos, which was then, the email was signed as Weston Imer, member of the Republican National Committee Youth Advisory Council. So this email goes out in the afternoon, evening. We start getting blown up with phone calls and emails from friends and acquaintances and concerned people of like, what on earth is this? Did you really just send this? And of course, they sent it to me as well. The perpetrator didn't even try and hide it. They sent it directly to me. They sent it directly to my mother. They sent it to the chair of the party. All of these people, right? So, obviously, I did not do this, and I am now exposed in a way that I never could have imagined being exposed. And so we acted pretty quick. We got in touch with our attorneys. We called the local sheriff's office in Jefferson County to report it as revenge porn. Here here in Colorado, we have a statute that predates the Take It Down Act, which made it illegal in Colorado and a state crime to send out images like this over the airwaves, whether on social media, email, text message, what have you. And we reported it to Jeffco. There's been an ongoing investigation since March 25th into this incident. And now, yesterday, President Trump signed the Take It Down Act into law, which makes it a federal crime, which will now be able to bring the FBI in to try and get to the bottom of who's behind this.
I first met Weston Imer at a gathering where we were celebrating President Trump's primary win here in Colorado over Nikki Haley. I met his mother, Laurel, as well, and that's who he's referring to there. He joins us. I'm noticing on your Facebook page, Weston, a lot of formers, including in your title, your biography, saying former RNC Youth Advisory Council member, former staffer at Colorado GOP. Did this incident cost you those positions?
It did not cost me the Colorado GOP one, but I have reason to believe it cost me the RNC one. About a week after Britta Horn was elected chair, I was mysteriously removed from the RNC Youth Advisory Council with no reason given by the RNC. And I have reason to believe that this email was misconstrued and sent to the Republican National Committee saying that I did this. And mysteriously, a week later, I was removed, told to change everything to former, remove the GOP branding from any social media, and that I was barred from addressing anyone as a member of the council here, forthwith. So that, I have a feeling, was involved and linked to this. I recently returned from Miami, Florida, where I was supposed to have a meeting with the chief of staff of the RNC, who mysteriously canceled our meeting right before it was supposed to happen. And I have not heard from anyone since.
Weston Imer, our guest. Now, I did receive a few texts from names that our audience would know that were telling me that you had direct involvement in the images themselves. I'm not casting aspersions as to their origin or where they might have originally been posted, but I want to read you these texts, Weston, and just have you respond to them. They are as follows. It says, isn't this law, the one that President Trump just signed, the Take It Down Act, isn't this law to protect underage children for photos that were non-consenting? Wasn't Weston an adult when he posted these pictures? And then following up, same text message, how is it revenge porn when Weston himself texted a group of young Republicans his Grindr handle? He did this to himself. Your response?
So none of those facts are true, and maybe off air you can share with me who that is, because I'm sure Jefferson County Sheriff's Office would love to talk to this person because they seem to have some knowledge. So for one, I have never posted inappropriate photos of myself on any platform, dating app, social media, website, anything. Never would, never have. I pride myself on being a very discreet individual, and every person in my generation is guilty of this same behavior. You can ask any Gen Z individual in the country, and they will say, yep, we've done it. We aren't proud of it. We've done it, right? And that's the truth. Not proud of it. Yes, the photos are of me. Yes, I may have taken them, but to misconstrue them as my choice to have these distributed and to say that I posted them somewhere is patently false. And that is provable. If you go back through my social media, you will never find anything of the sort posted. You will never find even a reference to anything sexual on any of my platforms. And so what happened here is someone got their hands on these photos. I have never sent out a screenshot of a Grindr profile to anyone. I've never sent these photos out to a group of young Republicans. I've never done any of those things, right? So if you really want to delve into it, these people that are saying this are hovering for whoever is responsible. And these photos were found, gotten their hands on by someone. There's been suspicion that somebody hacked into my Snapchat account and obtained them that way through there's a private folder on there that you can lock things in that is not as secure as I once thought it was. And we've had some tech gurus that have been looking into that. But these people got their hands on these photos and made a choice, a criminal negligent choice, to send them out to hundreds of individuals to, in effect, commit a political assassination against me. and they've been successful for the most part. And that is something that I just cannot believe is happening in this day and age, especially with the signing of the Take It Down Act and the criminalization of this behavior federally. This is something that is highly alarming. There is, I believe, a conspiracy behind this from the establishment that don't want me anywhere near Colorado politics or federal politics for that matter, and they are getting away with it. And as you mentioned, these are prominent people that just sent you these messages. These people are high up. They don't like me for whatever reason, and they want to see me removed in any way possible.
Weston, how old are you right now?
I am 21. And to follow up on your point of the younger, aspect,
right.
The bill is not age specific in any way.
Well, I remember being 21 and doing a lot of things that I'll tell you this. I am glad I did not grow up in your Gen Z generation because the 90s were a much different time, and the only thing I had to worry about were those Kodak Instamatic cameras and people having those types of pictures developed. So, Weston Imer or Polaroid. Yeah, right. That one you see happen right away. You can be a little bit more stealth with the Instamatic back in the day. You can follow him at Real Weston Imer on X. That's WESTONIMER. Weston, we appreciate you sharing your story with us here today, and we'll see where it goes from here now that President Trump has signed that into law.
Yes, thank you, Ryan, and I appreciate you having me on to share my story. And please, if anyone else is a victim of this, don't be afraid to speak up. And please, reach out if you have any information. The Jefferson County Sheriff's Office has a case. You can call them directly, or you can reach out to me, and we can go from there. Thank you.
Yep, the Take It Down Act now law, courtesy of President Trump. A break. We're back, wrapping up hour number one.
And it's not just, state politics and national politics, but again, the ecosystems all kind of reflect each other, and this kind of behavior even trickles down to municipal level politics. In 2023, Monument Mayor Mitch LaKind was the subject of an ethics complaint from former Monument Town Councilor, trustee, I think is the term they use, whatever, Darcy Shanning, right? We're all familiar with Darcy, but in this 249-page complaint, which stemmed from accusations of campaign finance violations during the November 2023 elections Home Rule Charter initiative, the town of Monument hired this attorney, Grant Vanderjagt, whose wife, Dagny, named after an Ayn Rand character, really, ran for Attorney General, I think it was, some office recently. But during the course of the investigation, according to the complaint, began to hear from town whistleblower employees about the town's toxic good old boy network. And we reported in Monument about kind of this racist incident involving the Monument police chief and the town administrator at the time. And Vanderjagt also heard from two former trustees that Mayor-elect LaKind had made an inappropriate sexual comment to then appointed trustee Shanning. The comment was verified by another female board member, Mayor Pro Tem Kelly Elliott. According to Vanderjagt's report, LaKind had commented, "Had I known you were giving out blowjobs to get appointed, I would have changed my vote." Hilarious. And the reason this is kind of relevant within the complaint, it's awful on its face. Our elected officials should not be saying these things, but as a result of Vanderjagt's investigation, LaKind retained William Reed, who introduced himself as LaKind's personal attorney during a December 28, 2022 council meeting. In January, LaKind filed an ethics complaint written by Reed against Vanderjagt, citing violations of attorney-client privilege and claiming that Vanderjagt's report displayed legal incompetence. In April, the Monument Town Council voted to pay $21,501 that LaKind owed Reed, his personal attorney, for legal services. So that's kind of the crux of that whole complaint. But the sexually inappropriate comments, of course, stand out there. And I know, right? We're going all in on Republicans today, but it's not just Republicans, right? Weinberg isn't the only Colorado legislator in recent memory to have made completely inappropriate comments. And in 2017, it was Democrat legislator Steve Lebsock. And this is a 2017 story, also from Benta Birkeland, published on KUNC, which is public radio out of Boulder, I believe. Anyway, in 2017, 9 legislators, staffers, and lobbyists are alleging that Rep. Steve Lebsock, a Democrat running for state treasurer, harassed, intimidated, or made unwanted sexual advances against them. And in response to our reporting, a top Democratic leader is calling on Lebsock to do the right thing and resign. Rep. Faith Winter said Lebsock tried to get her to leave a bar with him in 2016. Both were attending a party to celebrate the end of the legislative session. Lawmakers, lobbyists, staff, the governor, and members of the media attended the event a few blocks from the Capitol building. Winter alleges that Lebsock suggested sexual acts the two could do to make each other happy because it was the end of the legislative session and they deserved to be happy. Steve Lebsock's behavior is egregious, Winter said. It's widespread and it's time to, instead of isolating him, actually protect the victims. Winter, a Democrat, said she repeatedly refused Lebsock's advances, but he wouldn't stop and instead got angrier and more aggressive. She said he was standing over her and grabbing her elbow and she didn't feel safe. Others, speaking both on the record and anonymously, said they witnessed the incident and others involving Lebsock during workdays at the Capitol and its nearby offices. That includes House Assistant Majority Leader Alec Garnett, who recalled the end-of-session party. He said he was standing nearby when Winter signaled to him that Lebsock was harassing her. Garnett said he stepped in. I said, "Hey, Steve, I'm going to get you an Uber. And I remember him saying, F you, Garnett." Lebsock, when contacted for this story and told of the wide-ranging concerns regarding his behavior, initially said, "I'm not sure exactly what you're referencing." So Lebsock was a Democrat, and he was a Democrat, but then he switched his party affiliation to Republican and resigned so that a Republican vacancy committee could be the ones to appoint his replacement instead of the Democrats. So there is precedence for the things that are being accused against Weinberg, and in that situation, the legislator resigned. Don't know if that's what Weinberg's going to do. There's also, of course, the case of Tay Anderson, who was accused of, among other things, sending, sexually inappropriate remarks to 16-year-old students in the Denver public school system while he was a school board member, and engaging in sexually inappropriate conversations with people involved in an activist group, nonprofit kind of thing. So yes, this behavior is not just limited to Republicans. It's kind of, unfortunately, widespread, and there are two ways, I guess you could look at it, right? And again, the progressive, left-leaning kind of argument is clearly that, there's a culture of misogyny, there is, rampant kind of sexism and bias, and our society kind of, enforces it and replicates it in spaces, and we need to kind of rethink our approaches to sexual dynamics, and maybe just not talk about sex with your coworkers. But the conservative response is probably that, because of the sexual revolution of the 1960s, which introduced birth control and abortion, which allowed women to divorce themselves from the consequences of sexual behavior, it emboldened them to licentious and amoral conduct, which in turn, led men to, give in to their lusts and their passions, and it is really the cultural departure from long-held Christian conservative values that is causing all of this turmoil now. And if we just went back to a patriarchal kind of form of government and adopted, Ted or Mike Pence's Franklin Graham rule, where you're just never alone with a woman ever, and you call your wife mother for the entirety of your marriage, that these issues would just go away. And that's certainly a way of thinking about things now, isn't it? Thank you for watching this podcast. If you liked the podcast, if you didn't like the podcast, please just give us a like on Facebook or Spotify or whatever platform you're tuning in on. Leave a silly comment for the algorithm, right? Get some discussion going. Please share this with your friends. Share it on social media. Tag us. We're on all kinds of different social media. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. We're on TikTok. We're on Blue Sky. We are everywhere that you want your content to be. If you appreciate our reporting, if you appreciate this content, please consider, again, a tax-deductible donation to our nonprofit newsroom. This reporting is made possible by viewers like you, and if you want to see some behind-the-scenes footage at the apparently quite wild and raucous Leadership Program of the Rockies after parties, please sponsor this reporter to go and check it out. You guys stay safe out there. Don't talk about sex with your coworkers. Until next time.